In this episode of Student-Led Conversations, we dive into a multi-generational dialogue about what freedom truly means and how that definition changes over time. It's a conversation filled with stories of breaking barriers, navigating cultural expectations, and turning setbacks into stepping stones. Because freedom isn't just wide open spaces and no rules. It's deeply personal, shaped by challenges, choices, and moments we often recognize only in hindsight. And we see how life's twists and turns can guide us exactly where we're meant to be.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Student-Led Conversations, where we explore big ideas through student voices. I'm Arpan Gurwal.
And I'm Rashida Multani. Today's episode is called Freedom to Be, Identity, and Independence. We're not here to talk about GPA or resumes. We're diving into what it means to define your own success, survive failure, and break free from expectations.
We both have stories about what freedom means to us as students, culturally, emotionally, and socially, but we know many professionals have been through that too. So we're asking, what happens when the perfect path doesn't go as planned?
Joining us today, we have Calvin Harris and Tina Caratan, two professionals whose paths couldn't be more different. And that's exactly why we want them on today's show.
Before we get too far in, we want to open the mic and ask if both of you would introduce yourselves to our audience today.
Calvin, I'll go first. Ladies first, as they say. Hi, everyone. I'm Tina Caratan. I'm out here in San Francisco, California, native-born Californian. Have been in the practice of accounting for 51 years. I've been licensed for 49 of those years in the state of California. I spent 37 years in public accounting, and the last 14 as I slowly graduate from my day job, I consult to the not-for-profit industry here in California.
And I'm Calvin Harris. Here in New York. I'm the CEO of NYSSCPA, the New York State Society of CPAs. Very glad to be here. I am a CPA as well. I've been in the accounting profession a little shorter, a little over 30 years, and I've been a CPA for, I guess, 28 of them. So a lot of different experiences also in the not-for-profit auditing space as well, but I'm very much enjoying helping to lead the state of New York.
Well, thank you both for joining us today. We are so excited for our conversation, and we'd love to start with, what does freedom mean to you?
Calvin, I'm going to throw that one at you
first. Well, I think freedom admittedly is down to the individual. So, what my definition may be and another person's definition, we both could be right. So for me, it means the ability to really live your best life, whatever that might be, and really do what you wish. And note I didn't say anything in terms of personal life or business life or anything career. I mean, I think it can be all of the above. So I think it's really the ability to live your absolute best life.
I would definitely agree with that. You're obviously smarter than I am to come up with that very eloquent answer. But I think freedom is very all-encompassing, I think. And, I'll give an example of kind of tying into what Calvin said. When I was a young professional, I'd walk down the streets of San Francisco, and back in those days, women professionals had to wear our 3-inch stilettos, a straight A-line skirt. Computers had not been invented yet. I know I sound like I'm from ancient Rome. And we had adding machines that were the size of a small toaster oven. And I'm walking down the street with my audit bag and my toaster oven adding machine that really was just an adding machine. And I would look at and I'd be happy. I'm carrying around 50 pounds of stuff. And I'd look at the people around me on the streets of downtown San Francisco, and I said, how sad. These people do not look happy, but they have to work in order to pay for their rent, for their children's educations, for putting food on their children's plates. And I thought, how lucky am I to do something I enjoy, and even though I have to carry 50 pounds of stuff around? So that's how I would define freedom.
Yeah, I love that. So, as students, we often think of freedom as being able to choose your own major, your path, or even saying no to what your parents want. But it's always not that simple. I mean, I know that my parents, they both are in the business field, so they kind of grew us up as the mindset of CEOs and entrepreneurs. But somewhere in the middle, I was like, you know what? I want to be an artist. I want to be this, I want to be that. But it's because they let me to explore my passions and actually figure out what I liked about those passions and overall choose what I wanted to do in the future.
Hmm. I love how you said that because I also believe that so much of freedom comes from having the access and being able to do what you want to do. And so much of it is kind of not having that mental pressure of societal expectations, not having that expectation where I need to do a certain thing. And like Tina said, she was happy doing the job that she was doing. And that so much of that comes from not having the pressure of society where you want to do a certain thing, but instead you're happy doing the thing that you're doing.
Exactly. So we just want to ask you, what did freedom mean to you when you were younger? And how has that changed over time? And how has your family or your culture or even the time period shaped your sense of independence?
I'll take that one first, Calvin.
Have at it.
Well, to let the audience know, one thing I didn't say in my intro is I am a first generation. I am the child of immigrants. My sisters and I, all three of us, were first gen college students. Back then, we didn't think of ourselves as first gen college. We didn't even know that term. Um, and my dad, both my parents are from a country that is now known as Croatia. My dad had a third grade education coming from that. He was born 1901. Actually, is when my father was born. He immigrated to the United States to find a better life, which so many people do and continue to do. And he was insistent that even though he had three daughters, that we would all receive the highest level of education we wanted. Now, he wanted my eldest sister to go into business, so it kind of ties into what you both said. He even bought her like business magazines. She didn't want anything to do with that and became a nurse. My second sister came along and he tried again, and she became a third grade school teacher. Now, admittedly, they are 12 and 10 years older than I have always been 12 and 10 years older than myself. Um, I came along, and by then my father had given up. First off, he had three daughters. So it was like, really? Um, and he had pretty much given up. And of course, I, growing up in the 50s and 60s, was desperate to work for the space program. I was going to go send men to the moon. That's because that's who we sent back in those days. Um, and my parents, God love them, never told me that there were no women at Space Central. Um, and I was going on this merry little path to be a math major. And when I announced my sophomore year in college that I was switching from math to accounting, um, I have to say my father was thrilled, but I'm sure he was scratching his head going, how the heck did that happen? I never tried to get her into the business world. Uh, but what he failed to realize is he kept those little magazines he bought from my eldest sister. He kept the subscription going. And, and I'd pick them up and read them. Um, and it took until about, because I went into auditing, like Calvin indicated was as well. Um, and it took till a few years before he passed away to realize I was an auditor and not a tax preparer. But notwithstanding that, uh, he was exceptionally proud when I told him I passed the exam, told all of his friends that I had passed the exam. So while my dad specifically, my mother just wanted me to be happy. She would have liked me to have gotten married and had kids and all that good stuff. My dad was very excited when I became an accountant and then ultimately a CPA. But there was, interestingly enough, when he gave up pushing, it was me, the one he didn't push, who wound up in business.
Yeah, I love that story. Calvin, I'm gonna jump in real quick before you answer the question. But Tina, you and me are very similar. I mean, I came from an immigrant household, first gen, and then I'm also three girls in the house. So my dad only has three daughters, and that's often seen as a disadvantage or a bad thing in society,
Mhm.
especially from other countries. So I can understand what having a really supportive father and a really happy mother can impact your life and your career.
Indeed. Well, um, that's hard to follow. I think you were talking about freedom younger versus older, and admittedly, freedom for me very much involved around money and how much money I could possibly make, which I realize sounds a bit shallow, but it also was impacted by things that had happened to me in going to college. I was not a first gen college student at all. Both my parents went to college, and um, not not my grandmother, but my grandmother's sister went to college. There's a whole story in terms of how the uh, oldest sister had to stay and take care of her parents, which had nothing to do with her intelligence. But during that time, my family went through some significant hardship financially, and I had to take a year out of school. Actually, experienced homelessness for about a summer. So when I got back into college, I was very focused, but also in coming out of college and the opportunities that came my way, I was very much focused on not having that kind of feeling again. So freedom very much was very much based on money. Now, as I'm considerably older, many years past college, freedom goes back to what I said, a little earlier, the ability to do what you wish, have that sort of openness of possibility. So that absolutely could still relate to making as much money as possible. But I tend to think it more along lines up with, being fulfilled at what you do. Ironically, as I didn't realize then, but I certainly understand now, at least for me, I don't know if this applies to everyone, but it certainly applies to me. I tend to do my best work when I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And not coincidentally, you tend to make more money if you're doing a good job. So I found for me it was critically important to make sure that freedom also is whatever work I'm doing is something that I actually enjoy and feel a connection to because everything else will follow.
My father used to say that if you enjoy what you do, the
Yep.
money will follow.
Yeah,
And
it consistently does. Yep.
yeah, it that's a really true statement.
Mhm. I love how both of you guys talked about, having the passion in your work, but I also wanted to point out how you were talking about financial freedom, Calvin,
Yeah. Yes.
because even in my own household, financial freedom was always something that we prioritized.
Sure.
Like even both of my parents, they both are working, they both love their jobs, but they also prioritize having that financial freedom because they want the same things for us to follow along too. They want to set that example where we want our kids to see that we prioritize having that financial freedom because we want our kids to have the same thing. So it's so interesting seeing just how your childhood can also impact how you grow up and how financial freedom can be such a thing that you prioritize even when you're older as well.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to remember those lessons, hard to forget, rather, the lessons you learn, the really meaningful ones you learn when you're younger. They stick with you, and they should.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So just to like expand on what you guys said, were there any boundaries that you guys had to break when you were growing up to grow and get into the position you are today?
Not from my family, I will say that. Um, Certainly not in my high school. I went to an all girls Catholic high school in the San Diego area, not from college. I will honestly say where I started to find the problem is when I started to look for my first job. It was 1974. Actually, I started interviewing in October of 73. And while for you two and many of your listeners, that seems like somewhere in the dark ages. In Calvin, in my world, it's not that far back.
Yeah.
Um, but in October of 73, when I started my interview process, I felt I had, the world by the tail. Granted, my grade point average wasn't as stellar as some of my classmates, but that was because I had switched majors and I determined I was good at arithmetic, not at math. And you get one really bad grade in college, it really stays with you. But I got questions asked of me, what's a good looking girl like you doing in accounting, looking for your MRS degree, your Mrs. degree? Um, how many years can we expect you to work? Do you believe in daycare centers? I mean, these are questions that were asked of me 52 years ago, and they are still top of my mind. And so, yes, the hurdle was just getting into the career world, the professional world, as a young female, majoring in a subject that was not predominated at all by female. In fact, at the time, maybe there was 4 or 5% of women in accounting nationwide graduating from accounting. So yeah, that was the hurdle that I experienced early on.
Yeah. And I feel like although it's not the same or as hard as it was back then, we still see those disadvantages for women today, especially as young girls trying to get into professional careers. If we try to hide ourselves away, that's seen as a bad thing. Or if we're too passionate about what we're doing, that's also seen as something to look down on. So it's still hard to find that middle ground and then prove yourself in a room in industries where it's still mostly male dominated.
In fact, if your listeners want to go and look at a post that I just posted this morning, I think, maybe yesterday, um, there was an article I read, and it's entitled, and I put it onto my LinkedIn site, 20 ridiculous things that women had to put up with in the 70s.
Mm.
Sadly, yeah, I like that eyebrow raise.
Lifetime, yeah.
Uh, Sadly, those things were improved in the last 50 years, but I feel we are backpedaling at this point. So Arpin, I would agree with your comment there.
Yeah. Calvin, do you want to explain if
Sure.
you had any boundaries or breakthroughs?
Yeah, I've had a bit of both. No doubt about that. We're on a podcast, and the one of my favorites is one that talks about people who have built organizations. I won't give a plug for someone else on here, but I can still describe what they talk about. One of the last questions I always ask of a guest is essentially about their success. Do they believe it was pretty binary question? Was it good luck or hard work? And consistently, the answer that comes up from most people is both. And I tend to believe that as well. And that comes along with barriers and challenges. So we were talking about this just yesterday on a ride, a little further up from New York City yesterday, talking about how unusual that there can still be, first or unusual things in 2025 with the things that Tina just talked about in the early 70s, women still having many challenges, certainly as a Black man, African American man, um, the accounting profession still does not remotely have percentages of, let's just say, Black CPAs as a number matching up with the population. So those are normal things, and it pretty much demographics. You can choose your demographic, and you'll typically see that we're just lagging. We have a lot of room to grow. Um, but I also am aware that there are many organizations and many people who had it much, much worse than I did, to where, organization I am affiliated with, sorry, I'm a lifetime member, National Association of Black Accountants, was founded the same year I was born. So it's easy if someone wants to figure out how old I am. And the percentages since their founding are a little higher, but not as high as one might say. And that's not to criticize work, it just means that sometimes there's a long tail needed for progress. Sometimes, and progress tends to not be linear. You have times that are going back, and I too have great concerns in terms of many things where we seem to be going in the wrong direction. But typically, they move forward. So for me, as I am admittedly Proudly and not so proud, to be honest, to be the first, only the second Black person to head of the state CPA society. The first was Ralph Thomas in New Jersey. But I'm number two in 2023 when it happened, which is kind of baffling. It's a great honor, and I feel very humbled to have it. Yet I'm like, well, gosh, surely there were many people who could have done this before me. So that part ends up being timing and perhaps, good fortune. But yes, I've absolutely worked hard for what I have as well. But I would say I admittedly try to not focus, but so much on the barriers. And I don't mean that in a putting my head in the sand sort of way, because if I see something wrong, I tend to feel the need to speak out against it. But at the same time, I sometimes worry that if I let myself focus too much on those things that hold me back, that I'll actually be held back when no one's actually holding me. So have I had barriers? Yes. I, said just as a passing phase that I was homeless for a little bit. That's not like a small detail. I lost my scholarship, then I got it back. I have been on public assistance before as an adult, been on food stamps and not been able to fix cars and all sorts of things. So I've absolutely had some pretty challenging experiences, yet I'm very thankful for where I am now. Um, and but even though I've worked so hard for it, I'm also not under the belief that I also didn't have a bit of good fortune along the way. And where I get concerned, admittedly, is there are many people who are sometimes struggling or challenged or see challenges, and they don't have that person holding open a door for them that they can walk through. So yeah, I've had a ton of challenges. Yet for me, it's really just made it so that I want to very much so make sure that the challenges that I had to experience, no one else has to experience. So that it's like, oh gosh, how could someone have had this happen? Would be the sort of thing that we say, even if it was something that we've experienced in our lifetime.
Mhm. Hearing all of your struggles, and even as a young person, I'm sure there's so many people listening today who also face similar struggles. And I love how, as a leader of the state CPA society, you're probably doing so much advocacy work, most
Lots of
likely
advocacy. Yeah.
for the accounting profession, for people like
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Do you have any specific stories that stick out to you that you can recall from this advocacy work?
Sure, a bunch immediately come to mind, but I will say what really sticks out for me as much as anything is admittedly in our very most recent session of legislation, because New York is one of the states that added on a pathway for licensure, which this is a little in the nitty-gritty, I realize, but to become a certified public accountant in most places around the country, you have to have 150 credit hours or the equivalent of a master's degree plus 1 year of work. When I became a CPA, I don't want to speak for Tina, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be the same answer. You
It
had
was the same,
it
trust
was the
me.
same. You had 120 credit hours and a bachelor's degree or 2 years. Now, as it turns out, it's roughly 6 years one way or another. But we went away from that, and I was very proud to add that back on to give people options. Because there's a whole broader conversation that, frankly, could take up the whole podcast on just the merits of one way or another. But I think it's important to have options. Now, I will say, just knowing my own background. And I'm, a very proud CPA. I think the accounting profession is the greatest profession out there. So they have the opportunity to literally help set forward guidelines that will make it so that people coming out of school will have more options. That is extremely gratifying because for me, um, I'm very big on making sure that people can see accounting in all the ways it can be, which would include the, stodgy in the office sort of work. That's what I began with. There's nothing wrong with that. But also you can have a lot of flexibility. You can actually be yourself in accounting. So anytime I can create more opportunities, that's a great thing. So even the most recent work we've been able to do, which admittedly some people said couldn't be done in New York, at least not quickly. I'm very proud to be a part of that.
We still don't have it in California, Kelvin. So
It's coming though. Yeah, no, I can only say, one great thing about this job is you get enough information, even about what's happening in other states, that, California's timing might be a little different, but they are absolutely leading the way in the country in this area as well.
yeah, actually, I was a committee of the State Board of Accountancy
Oh,
when the front end of this, the 150
so was one of my members. Yeah, yeah.
was being put in, and I remember saying to the Board of Accountancy, you realize you were establishing a two-tiered system because we were also at that time eliminating the audit
That's right.
requirement.
Right.
You get a license with or without a test.
Yeah.
And I'm from the old school.
Yeah.
My old school is, do your 4 years, do your 2 year. The joke was indentured servitude for 2 years. Get your audit experience in,
Yeah.
and then you have like the world becomes an oyster to you.
That's right.
It opens up completely. But I also saw the merits of the 150.
Yeah. Yeah. I had similar thoughts, which is admittedly why, there are some states and each state has to decide what's right for them that we're looking to take away, even though I didn't have to go through that thing. And I'll admit, I mean, considering how financially challenging it was to go to college, I can't in good conscience say, am I sure that I would have been a CPA under that 150? No. And candidly, for me, I have issue with that. Not with the 150 itself, but it's like if I'm the CEO of the oldest state society in existence, and I can't myself say in good conscience that I know I would have been a CPA, then my goodness, how can I not support the option that I had? Otherwise, how am I not a hypocrite to to push against it? So, and each person has to find their own place in this. But for me, I was like, well, I have no issue with 150, but I can't in good conscience say that's the only path to success because that wasn't my path to success.
Calvin, we have more in common than we know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am completely positive I wouldn't have been a CPA if I had to go to college for 5 years.
I mean, the money would have been the issue. I don't know how it would
have been. No, for me, it was just being a student. I didn't like being a student. So I don't think I could have withstood another year of college.
I get that.
Yeah. And as Calvin was mentioning about all those options, I truly think by having all those paths and all those options and opportunities is what truly helps students like me and Harshita as we prepare for our journey into college and our professional careers. And it gives us the opportunity to actually support ourselves and want to do these because we have the access and the opportunity to do what we want to do.
Yeah. Agreed. Well said.
Mm-hmm. And I think I love how this conversation's going. I really do love how the multi-generational aspect of this, how there's so much we have in common as even though we are such different generations, there's so much we have in common. And it's so beautiful to see how one way a generation has gone has impacted another way. So it's so interesting just to see how this dynamic has been going and how just this conversation alone can show how much we've progressed as generations have gone by.
Calvin, I noticed your t-shirt when you first came in.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Today's shirt is, let me see if I can back up for the camera. It's like, we'll give accounting advice for coffee. So the joke behind all these t-shirts, and I've said it a few places, it is something that began about a year and some change ago. I was at a bike studio, Peloton, the big bike company, has their studios here in New York City. So it's actually not very far from where I'm sitting now. And I was at the studio and I had on a t-shirt that said, Santa's a favorite accountant. And someone took a picture of it, they sent me a picture of it, and they thought it was funny. And they dared me to post it on LinkedIn. Well, LinkedIn is the professional business website, social media. You put that on Instagram or TikTok or elsewhere. You don't put that on. And I took the dare because I didn't care. I said, well, what's the worst that could happen? And I posted it and it got a lot of engagement. I mean, it far more than it should have, considering some of the things I actually do post about, that was the most interesting thing I posted that year. And then I followed up with another and the same sort of thing happened. So these days I actually do it on every Tuesday. I have T-shirt Tuesday where I pull some random T-shirt. This is the one that's going to be on, at the time of our taping. I don't know when this will release, but odds are this is the one because I'm posting this upcoming Tuesday because I've got a new batch of T-shirts to wear. So frankly, it's just having fun. I'm amusing myself when I do it.
No, I love it. And I feel like that's something that even our generation would love seeing on professionals and Gen X people like you.
Yeah. Well, I will say I always know when my people I have it's yet to not happen. Whenever I wear one of my t-shirts in the airport, I always know who the accountants are because at least one person will come up to me and say, "I love your t-shirt." And that's just you're my people. And I've met more accountants and CPAs wearing these t-shirts walking around the world than anywhere else. Now, I will say I don't typically go to a meeting this way, but the I'll say the beauty of being the CEO is you can sometimes break the rules a little bit.
Yeah.
On that note, I did want to mention me and Arpin, we were both prepping for this meeting and we came across your TikTok, Calvin.
Uh-oh.
So we wanted to know, will these T-shirt Tuesdays be making an appearance on your TikTok as well?
They will, and I will say it's funny you mention that because the I've had a TikTok account I think for a few years. I'm honestly not sure, and it had no activity whatsoever, and it was just there. I'm not even sure why I opened it, to be honest. And then we have a program here in New York called COAP, Career Opportunities in the Accounting Profession, where we bring high school students from all around the state and we expose them to accounting. In some cases, it's a day program. In some cases, it's a multi-day program. And I don't remember actually I do know which campus, but I won't blast them on that. But one particular student at a campus said, you should do this on TikTok. And I'm like, well, I haven't done anything on TikTok. So I very recently posted an introduction for what I'm calling, accounting ain't what you think. Just
Right.
busting certain myths. So my first one was an introduction, and I'll be doing it at least every Thursday. But as it turns out, as things tend to happen with me, I've already gotten excited and just started putting things on there. So I can guarantee that t-shirts will be showing up there many times and many times over. So I figure someone who is a Gen Xer can lean into TikTok, then anything is possible.
Yeah. And I'll for sure be following along. And I think it's amazing that you're getting involved with TikTok and connecting with our generation,
Yeah,
especially since TikTok has such an impact on our generation.
yeah,
And we
yeah.
get most of our knowledge and what we see from there.
Yeah.
So
Well, see,
it's,
you said exactly what was told to me. And, I also do believe it's an important part. I believe this is important for every CPA, quite honestly, but it might be a little much to me put that on people. But it's certainly as a CEO, um, I feel an obligation to certainly take care of my members, but also make sure that accounting is interesting and appealing to people that are coming in. Well, if younger people are on TikTok, then that's where we need to be. There's no point in me only being at places that are comfortable for me. I need to go where you are and be uncomfortable. And then, you'll probably know when I'm very comfortable, when I just start, then I was like, okay, he's gotten a little too comfortable. You can feel free to mess me and say, dial it down a little bit. But I'm actually very excited to be there and connect with
yeah.
some newer groups.
Well, I think that from a year now, you'll be telling us that you are so comfortable on TikTok and it's your favorite app.
Probably
Yeah.
so.
Well, I think it's like the best thing for businesses to do nowadays is to get on TikTok because it really allows our generation to see a more fun and personal side of all these companies rather than what we'll see on LinkedIn and
Sure.
all those ads on Instagram as well.
Hopefully someone's listening to you when they say that, because
Yeah.
that is exactly what I heard as well. And
Yeah.
shame on us for not thinking that way. But
Yeah, so I mean, maybe we can even start a whole series of TikTok t-shirts because I think this t-shirt idea can really go far when it comes to just conveying a message because it's
yeah.
it's funny, it's witty. But I also want to ask Tina, what do you think about this idea? What do you think about TikTok and social media nowadays?
Talking to the
I
top,
know the answer here.
yeah, you're talking to the top of the arc for baby boomers. At the risk of, you know, uh, students who can actually add and subtract, I was born in 1953. Um, and if you look at any arc of, generations, 52, 53, and 54 are the very top of the arc. After 54, it started to decline, the birth rate in the United States. I have a niece who's exactly 20 years younger than me, and she was born in 73, and that was the lowest birth year in the United States. So, with that as the kind of the context, um, I'm on LinkedIn, uh, and that's it. And I did that about 15 years ago when LinkedIn was relatively new, because I knew I was leaving public accounting, and I thought this would be a way in which I could do quote unquote free marketing, to, even though my name was very well known in the business community in San Francisco. Um, I I'm a people to people person, face to face. How I go toward students and try to get them to be interested in a profession that has served me exceptionally well. I actually go to college campuses. Um, I um, I just was sending an email to a professor whose class I'm lecturing at in October at the Ohio State University. I always have to say the,
And they're very particular about that.
Oh yeah, they are. I found that out
Yeah.
recently. And I just like their marching band and how they write Ohio, and then the trombone player comes over and dots the I. That's my big thing about Ohio. Um, but uh, I'm doing that lecture there. I actually have this. It's about a 10-day trip, and I'm doing 5 lectures at 3 different university campuses.
Wow.
I know, I'm kind of crazy.
Wait, is this all in the same state?
Well, no, 2 of them are in Ohio. So
Okay.
two universities in Ohio. So I'm doing 1 at OSU and 3 at Ohio Northern University, which is up in Ada.
Yeah.
And then I'm flying to Durango, Colorado,
Oh, wow.
and going to Fort Lewis College, which is a small state land grant college in Fort Lewis, in Durango. That it's a state college, has about, I don't know, about 8,500, 9,000 students. And it's one of the schools in the West was part of the land grant colleges that provides free education to American Indians who qualify for American Indian status.
Yeah.
I'll be doing a guest lecture at the audit class. And what's kind of, okay, this is like a factoid. What got Calvin, you don't know this, but got these 2 ladies to actually consider this very baby boomer person, was I sent them my slides that I'm giving at OSU, because the professor wanted me to talk to his MAC students, his Masters of Accountancy students. And he gave me the title because it was in my email. And I was joking around and saying, oh, yeah, I can do that. I did one for Beta Alpha Psi kind of on the spur. I said, I can say, don't try this career path at home. And at the very end of my email, I said, I just wasn't pegged to be a partner in public accounting. Hence the name of my presentation. My presentation is I wasn't pegged to be a partner in public. And
Nice.
and so, and I basically work for free. A dinner is what I work for. It allows me to travel, interchange with students that, because again, I'm from the old days, face to face type of stuff. And I get the whole TikTok generation. My nieces, my nephew, my grandnieces, my grandnephews, they're all on it. I don't get Facebook at all. Apparently, the younger generations are moving away from Facebook because my generation has moved into it.
That'll do it too.
But as one of my friends and I, she's a couple of years older than me, will say, we really don't have time for it. And so but I get it. I get where the Instagram and the TikTok and all of that. What worries me, of course, is the bad side of it.
Sure.
Is the cyberbullying. I mean, I would almost guess, Calvin, you were bullied
Sure.
as a child. We didn't call it bullying back in our day. We were just picked on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We were picked on. Nowadays, what probably happened to both of us, we would define as bullying.
Yeah.
And what worries me is how it's more appropriately filtered for young minds who, let's be honest, you're building your confidence. I mean, And I'm going to be honest to your audience. I'm 72 years old and I still have confidence issues.
Sure. Sure.
And my Calvin, you probably
Yep.
do as well.
Absolutely. All the time.
And when back in our day, when somebody said something stupid verbally, you could kind of brush it off. You come home, cry on your mom's shoulder, and mom would say, you know, just smile back at them, laugh back at them. Well, I did that and they stopped bullying me. You can't do that on social media. It just comes at you. So that's my issue with it. And I'm not even a mother, but I have great nieces and great nephews, and I worry about them.
Yeah. Well, I think that is a very good point to be made, and it is something that is very realistic and is actually happening in the world and on social media.
Sure.
But whether it's cyberbullying or in-person bullying, it's happening everywhere. There's no stop to it, unfortunately. But it truly just depends on what part you're on, which communities you put yourself in, and how you present yourself in those communities and places, whether it's social media or in a new school or a new state or a company. So I
Yeah.
think it just depends on the person and how you deal with it and if you let it affect you or not.
I
Yeah.
I will not disagree with you, Arpan.
Yeah.
Um, I think you and Harshita are very mature young
Yeah.
ladies, and I'm sure you hang out with very mature people. The fact that you're even doing this, it definitely shows your
Remarkable.
maturity
Yep.
levels.
Yep.
But and yes, you're right. But some people don't have parents like you guys have. It's a whole mix out there. So that's my worry. Not that I'm saying that what Calvin is doing is inappropriate. I think what Calvin is doing is spot on. And my my
Yeah.
hat is off to you, my friend.
Thank you. So, well, sometimes it's not spot on, but I will say, as someone that was very reluctant, and I'm sure that TikTok will ultimately be for me the same way that Facebook was and the way that IG was, and LinkedIn I've been on for a long time, but LinkedIn's been around for a long time, to where I was a little reluctant. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Arguably, still don't know what I'm doing, and then realized, oh wow, this is a great tool. Because I will admit, in my sort of role, this is very, very generic way of putting it, but you often will have inward facing leaders or outward facing leaders. Then the inward is a person that's working on staff and membership and all those things. And the outward facing is a person just out there, being present, speaking, all that. And both are fine, honestly. It depends on the organization. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm not saying that at all. I am very easily characterized as an outward facing CEO, and I've leaned into it pretty heavily. And I got to admit that social media of all types has made that part of my job considerably easier and far more impactful than I would have thought possible, just by being, thoughtful in terms of what I put out there and where I put out there. And admittedly being confident enough and comfortable enough to put things out there and just see, okay, let's just see what will happen. Maybe it'll be good feedback, maybe it won't. I've learned over the years to understand the mute buttons pretty well. It's like when you say something great, I just mute you and I keep it moving. But yeah, I will admit that um, I think my ability to connect with members and people outside of my membership has been extraordinarily helped by all social media. So I admittedly and candidly, I'm hoping that TikTok helps me connect with people in a similar sort of way.
And I'm going to just comment to something for your audience. Um, what I think that your audience needs to recognize is that Calvin and I won't say that we're the outliers, but to a great degree,
Might not be true. Yeah, I think that might be
we
true.
are. Um, a lot of people pigeonhole accountants
Yeah,
as being green eye shades,
yeah,
working in a dark room,
yeah,
working with numbers all day long. And there's an element, not the green eye shade part, uh, and certainly
yeah.
not my age anymore with dark rooms. I need lots of
Right,
light.
right.
Um,
Same.
but the working with numbers, yeah, we interpret numbers. And a lot of people coming out of high school or in their early years of college, you know, they're looking for, what do I want to say, the sexy roles. Accounting has actually, and as the CEO of a society of CPAs, Calvin, my guess is you'll agree with me. We've done some of this bad publicity and
Oh gosh, yeah.
advertising
Yeah.
on our own.
Oh yeah. Yeah, self-inflicted for sure. No
Yeah.
question.
And we represent, and there's a lot of us out there, like Calvin and I, who are much more outgoing than what the profession has exhibited and tried to convey. Now we're going through this renaissance of, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do TikTok, and I was always the type of person going, I like what I do. I like the numbers. One day when I was, I don't know, 26, 27 years old, sat on the edge of my bed and I was near tears. Oh, seriously, I was near tears. I said, I was getting ready for work. I said, what do I do in this world? My sister is a nurse. She saves lives. My sister is a third grade school teacher. She educates young minds. What do I do? I help people make more money. I mean, that was like for a good Catholic girl like me, that was a really hard revelation.
Yeah.
Then I hit my hands on the side of my bed and I said, without money, people can't send their kids to the nurse that my sister is and to school that my other sister is. And from that moment on, I said, what I do is important and I'm going to make the best of it and I'm going to be excited about it. I have one friend who retired about 4 years ago, and she's still to this day completely confused why I have not fully graduated from my day job. I said, when you like something, it's hard to quit.
Well, appreciate it, Arp. And if I may just kind of add on to that just briefly, because I think Tina really touches on an important point, and it was one that I didn't realize early in my career. So I started working with Arthur Andersen, accounting firm that doesn't exist anymore. At that time, it was a big five. Well, it was big six when I was in school, but big five by the time I graduated.
They were 8 when I.
Yeah, well, I remember 12. I mean, so you can go way back. I mean, history is, our first founder, our first president of NYSSCPA is one of the namesakes of what ultimately became Deloitte. So that's history for you. So, but I ended up working out of Baltimore, in Baltimore, Maryland, because I didn't want to be close to where I lived at the time, where I grew up actually outside of DC, because I was convinced that I would end up doing government work or nonprofits, and I wanted nothing to do with that at all. I wanted to work in the corporate.
Careful about not-for-profits. They're good business.
Oh, no, this will come full circle, though. This will come full circle for sure.
Okay.
As it turns out, the year I started working in Baltimore, they got the audit of the state of Maryland, and they got additional not-for-profit clients. So a significant portion of staff, myself included, ended up doing not-for-profit work, the very work I was trying to leave. So ultimately, I ended up doing some work. But what dawned on me, I'll say right around that same age point, honestly, around the age of 27, 28, was realizing that, like I said earlier, I do my best work when I'm enjoying what I do. The mission can be very different, but for me, a connection to mission was critical. I didn't realize that fast enough. If you look at my background, you see I've worked in a lot of different places, a lot of different missions, but they've always had the assistance. And I learned, this is not about this job, but the job I had just before. It's the job that brought me to New York. When I was the chief financial officer of the National Urban League, I had an experience where I realized that yes, accounting truly can make people's lives better depending on where you work. Because at that organization, I was the CFO when we were going through COVID, and we were putting money toward communities that were struggling in many ways. While I was there, I was part of a grant program that would give small dollar amounts to small businesses sponsored by another organization. So literally I was able to see, gosh, by being the CFO here, my money going out the door literally helps build up communities, helps people live better lives. It was beyond gratifying to have that role. I have a similar sort of passion here because of the role, and it's all been in nonprofit work. Now, one of the things we don't often talk about it's actually probably my most recent TikTok posting. I talked about the importance of relevancy in accounting because I believe one of the things where we've hurt ourselves, and this goes so much into what Tina had said earlier, is that we've pigeonholed ourselves. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being an auditor or a tax preparer at an organization or a firm that is structured to have people make more money. I'm not knocking that at all. If that connects with you and you feel fulfilled doing that, nothing wrong. More power to you. For me, and I've actually felt connected in those sort of jobs. I'm not going to pretend I didn't do that. I felt connection, but I felt my deepest connection at organizations where I was like, gosh, I know because of me signing this check back when I actually signed checks. I don't sign anything anymore like that. I know that this money is literally helping make someone's lives better. And it never occurred to me as an accounting student, even though I knew very early I wanted to be an accounting student, it never occurred to me that through accounting, I could literally help people live better lives. Maybe not the same way as a nurse or a doctor or, an officer or I'm not saying that, but in ways that still matter because all those things I just rattled off in the other organization, as I say to the youngest students, everyone needs an accounting. Everyone needs an accountant involved. We are involved everywhere. You can look at anything and somewhere, some way, there is an accounting person involved. So we're one of the very, very few professions out there to where whatever it is, you name it, we do it. We are there. We are everywhere, which I know when I say it that way, that sounds a little creepy, but the reality is we are everywhere. So what I would want your listeners to know is that whatever area they're interested in, believe it or not, accounting could have you thrive in that area, irrespective of what you want to do. Accounting can help you.
I
Yeah.
agree 1,000,000%, Calvin.
hmm Well, you both made very good points, and we're getting kind of tight on time here. But before we wrap up, I'd like to ask each and one of you one last word of advice that you would want to leave our listeners to consider as they're walking through their path and journey.
Okay, let me try it first.
Okay.
I think keeping your mind open to every path that might be available to you, seeking out mentors and people who are, even if they're just a year or two ahead of you, once you get to your post-secondary educations, that can help you through the path. I mean, I have probably my first mentor was a guy in accounting. He was a year ahead of me, and we were just good. I was part of this group of friends, and he was the one who convinced me to sit for the last part of the CPA exam the first time I took it. And because of that prodding, I got back in the day when we got 2 parts passed that counted. I continued, seeking mentors, and sometimes mentors seek you out, and be open to that. I was just on the phone today with a young gentleman who's CEO of a federal credit union. He was in the financial institution practice of our practice at the firm I was with. I was the not-for-profit practice leader. Financial institutions, not-for-profit, totally different. He's a little quirky. My other partners just didn't know how to quite deal with them. I like quirky. And to this day, he still calls me for advice and counsel. But better yet, I'm helping him set up through the credit union, a foundation to help the firefighters of LA County. So there we go, full circle.
Wow. All right. I'm going to agree with everything that Tina said earlier, so I'll try hard not to repeat it because everything she said was spot on, as always, actually, during the conversation. But I will say, I'll give one piece of advice I received that I believe was wrong, and I believe many of your listeners have heard, and I want to just pivot on a little bit, and that is to follow your passion. I was given that advice. That advice is wrong. Unless there's got to be a comma after that, though, because your talent actually has to match it. Because if you follow your passion, but you have no talent in the area, you won't be successful. You might be happy, maybe, but you will not be successful at it. And ultimately, I don't believe you'll be very fulfilled. Now, I use a very easy example. I very much involve many sports. Baseball, football, soccer, name them. I'm not good at any of them. I'm 6'4", basketball, throw in there. I'm interested in them, but I'm not good at any of them to have gone pro. So while the passion may have been there, the talent wasn't. I would have not been successful. Maybe I would have been happy, maybe not. As it turns out, my passion also included accounting, and I'm pretty doggone good at it. I've ultimately been successful. So my thing would be to pivot is that follow your passion, comma, but make sure you actually have talent in that area. And then I think you'll ultimately have a very fulfilled life. But also, I'm going to take one that Tina said though. But also keep your mind open, because you will be, if you keep your mind open, you can be so surprised at where life may take you.
For sure.
I love both of your guys' responses so much. I honestly think they almost go hand in hand, because when you think about it, if you follow something that you are good at, but you're not exactly passionate about, having that open mind that both of you guys referenced can lead you to an experience that you weren't exactly open to in the beginning, but it can lead you to something that's really impactful to your future. And I also wanted to point out, when you were talking about passion, Calvin, we actually have an episode that we recently shot. It was actually the last episode that we had with Byron Patrick and Texlin Quinney. And if you haven't listened to that episode yet, we would like to invite you to do that.
I will. Funny enough, I have Byron coming on my own podcast this week, so we'll have something to talk about, I suspect.
Yes, I totally agree with everything Harshita said, and you should definitely go listen to that. And we would like to thank both of you for joining us today on today's episode of Student-Led Conversations. This has truly been such a great and insightful conversation.
I would have to agree with that for sure. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Like, this conversation has been so insightful, and we've learned so much from this conversation. Also, thank you so much for just keeping it real with us and having so much vulnerability in this conversation.
Definitely. Well, that's it for today's episode of Student-Led Conversations. We'd like to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. And if you enjoyed this discussion, please be sure to subscribe, share, and join us next time for more insightful conversations. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep making an impact. See you next time.
The Center for Accounting Transformation provides business professionals with a network for utilizing innovations that are ready for adoption, the training and resources necessary to apply those innovations, and an opportunity to engage the talent and community needed to further the pursuit of innovative accounting practices that drive responsible and mindful business performance. If you'd like to learn more about our Agents of Transformation campaign or share your own story, please visit our website, www.we.improvetheworld.net, and unlock the power of the accounting profession. And if you'd like to apply to be a student host on a future episode, email us at agents@improvetheworld.net.